feel like, why can't God just answer my prayer? Why does it have to take so long? Why does it have to be so difficult? Some of the most frustrating periods in our lives can be when we feel stuck. We're waiting on things to change. We're in a desperate situation. We're tired of things being the way they are. And we're praying. We're reaching out to God. We're wishing that our situation can change, and it just seems to be stalled. It just seems as if God is silent. It seems as if nothing is going to change. And sometimes there's this anguish that builds up. Sometimes it's frustration. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes it's this lost feeling of, why is God not answering our prayer? Why is he not moving? We know that God's big. He could do anything. Why keep us in this situation? I was having a conversation the other day with someone, and I mentioned this in another video, and they said to me, I don't believe that we're supposed to just be alone, that God created us for someone. He created man, he created woman. And that's in the context of them, being in this place where they're tired of being single. But it doesn't have to just be that. It could just be, you might have a financial need, maybe you might be sick. Maybe you've lost your job, or you're having a marital situation, or a situation with your children, and it could be any number of things, and you're like, God, why aren't you moving? But I just want to kind of walk back and share a little bit of my story, and hopefully that'll encourage and help you. One of the things that I faced for a long time was being sick. I've battled sickness for a long time in different areas of my life, meaning, specifically abdominal issues with my cycle, issues just with all kinds of things. And I had a period in my life where every day I woke up and I just felt extreme fatigue. I felt just sick, and it would go on for weeks at a time. And I remember one day just sitting down and just crying out of desperation. I was like, God, I know you can heal. I've seen you touch people, but why am I not healed? Why is this still happening to me? Because we have this mindset that if we're a Christian, that nothing bad ever happens, that everything should just be, fine, that we should not have any difficulty, that we should not have anything go wrong, and so we seem shocked when something goes wrong. But I just was like, I am so tired of being in this place. And I look back now and realize that I don't have all the explanation for illnesses and sickness, but one of the things I was going to do back then was I thought about having a hysterectomy, and it wasn't going to be a complete hysterectomy. It was going to be a partial hysterectomy. And I was given that option, and I kind of turned it down because I was like, oh, maybe I'll have kids later on, that sort of thing. And less than 10 years after that, I was still battling sickness. Yes, it was a long time. And I remember thinking to myself, Dag, why didn't I go through and have this surgery? And so long story short, it came to a point where I couldn't even get out of bed. And I was like, God, why don't you heal me? Why isn't this happening? And through a long series of events, and I do have a video about this, I ended up finding out that I had cancer, a rare form of cancer that was not going to be found on any blood tests, that was not going to be found, you know, on any scans, anything. And one of the things the doctor told me is that had I had the surgery I wanted, the hysterectomy that I was crying for, that it would actually have spread the cancer. And the type that I had is normally found generally at stage 4. And even if I had the partial hysterectomy that I was, you know, crying about the fact that, you know, why didn't I do this? I would have kept, you know, some parts of my body that would have been affected by the cancer. And I sit back, and the setup for how the healing came, because it came, and it came in a miraculous way, because how it was found was miraculous. And I sit back and I said, had all these things played out the way that I wanted it to, and was desperately crying for it to happen, the healing that was going to happen, that God orchestrated, would have never happened. In fact, I would have ended up in a most horrible state than I could ever imagine. And I said, you know, sometimes we want that quick fix. Sometimes we want just that quick, you know, answer, but we don't know all the behind the scenes for some of the things that happen in life, you know. And another kind of example really quick is, you know, I've been single for a long time, and I remember a few years, probably 10 years back, you know, I just was so sick of being single. You know, I was like, God, everybody around me is finding somebody, you know, people that you think wouldn't, you know. And I'm not trying to be like anything. I'm just saying, people that are handicapped, people that are, you know, have this or that disability, people that you might look at and say, oh, you know, they're just like, you know, not good looking. People that are, you know, they break up with one person, and next thing you know, they have a boyfriend like the next week. Like, how the heck is this happening? And again, I'm not saying that people that have disabilities or anything shouldn't, you know, be married or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just being real with what was going through my mind. And I had to come to terms, because I was like, I just don't get this. Like, is this a punishment? You know? And, but during that time, you know, I ended up having an opportunity to adopt. And I found out later, had I had been married, depending on who I married, I would not even have gotten that opportunity, because the part of the adoption process is that there are just certain aspects that they look at. I'll just put it to you like that. And I would not have been able to adopt. And not only that, because of all my medical history, I wouldn't even have been able to have children either. And I look back and I'm like, wow, that's crazy, you know, because I would not trade my children for the world. But to think certain things that I was rushing and I wanted it so badly, and I could have run out and find the nearest guy and fling myself at him and, you know, whatever. I would have messed up what God had for me, which was my 2 kids. And I found out later that all the things that I was waiting so long for, you know, gosh, why did it take so long for me to get back to school, or have this opportunity to like buy this house, or just, you know, get this job that I had, that I needed all of those puzzle pieces. And it took time to get each of them. I needed all of those puzzle pieces to bring me to this place where I would be able to get my kids. And some of you might be like, well, why would you want to be a single mom, or this or that? And, you know, everybody's story is different. And, you know, sometimes I say to God, you know, like, why couldn't it have happened? This, that, or the other, all these whys. But God he has infinite wisdom. He knows the whys. You know, we don't know all that needs to be worked through. We don't know, you know, how certain things work. You know, had I gone out and thrown myself at some guy, I would have messed up what God was trying to do. And he was trying to bless me. And yes, the kids have been a tremendous blessing. And you know what? I realized that I could have messed up so many things. I could have. Sometimes you got to step back and you have to wait. You have to pray. You have to be willing to wait on God. You have to be willing to put down desire. You have to be willing to not be in a rush. God sees what you need, when you need it. He sees and he understands, and God will move. And sometimes we think like God is coming down to the last second. Let God move. Let him work out what he's going to work out. He will work it out. Your situation will change. It will. You will not always be in the place that you're in. You're not. Things will never just stay the way they are. Your situation will change, whether it's your finances, whether it's, you know, waiting to be married, whether it's your spouse, you're this, you're that. You don't know how God's going to work things out. God works above what we think, what we ask. So if you get in that place and you're like, ugh, why can't you just do this? Just step back and say, you know what, God? Help me. Help my desires. Help my desires to be your desires. Help me to want what you want. Help me to wait. And I'm going to conclude by saying, as I always say, let God be your single hope.